Hi readers, welcome back to Reading Realm. First things first, I just wanted to get a little bit of channel business out of the way. I mentioned a couple of videos back that I was going to try to do once a week uploads, and I realized very quickly that with running my other channel where I post daily, as well as being a double major in university and being very busy with all of the school stuff, that just isn't really sustainable for me at this point. Maybe in the future, once I'm not in school, I might do weekly videos, but for now I think my goal is going to try to be twice a month, possibly more if there's a special holiday or something where I might have something. And there might also be times where I post a little bit less often if I'm really busy for some reason. Life happens. So that is going to be my goal. Another thing is I am actually moving. This is going to be my last night at this house. And over the last couple of months, I have read several books that I would like to review, pack away, and have in storage at my parents' house rather than in my new house. So I'm going to be recording several videos right now. So all of the ones you see with this backdrop will be in this house, but I'm recording them all today, so I will be in the same clothes, and that is why. But thank you all for understanding and listening, and let's get into the review. So today I'm going to be reviewing Defy the Worlds, the second in the series that starts with Defy the Stars, which I reviewed last. I love this series. It is, it's such a good mix between science fiction, kind of fantasy type world building, and then also just enough romance. I'm the kind of person where I personally do not like just pure romance. For me, if it's something else that has romance, like fantasy with romance or sci-fi with romance, I like it a lot more than just pure romance. And this series, I feel like, has romance, but the romance is so well paced, it's so well written. They do start off as enemies, as I think I mentioned in the last review, and it is technically enemies to lovers, but it's done in a very natural, very slow-paced way that doesn't seem forced. So, like, even by this book, they aren't really in a relationship. She's still kind of grappling with her feelings, and I think that that's really good, because it's not, like, trying to rush into that dynamic. And to me, it honestly makes it feel like their bond is more than just a romance, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems like sometimes with romance novels, it's like, okay, they're in a relationship now, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, is that natural? I don't know. But this one, I think, does it really well. And then I have a few other notes that I made about it. When I was going into this book, I had really high expectations because of the first in the series, which I absolutely loved. And I was not disappointed at all. Defy the Worlds, sorry, Defy the Fates is the third one. Defy the Worlds was really good. It has alternating perspectives to start with, so it's going between Abel, who is the male protagonist, and Naomi, who's the female protagonist, because they are quite literally worlds apart at this point, so you're kind of seeing what both of them are doing and how their storylines are progressing, and then ultimately how they come together again. I was immediately really drawn into the story and was wondering when and if, and also how they would see each other again, because the way that it was set up, it was kind of unclear how they would get out of the situation they found themselves in. But basically at the start of the book, there's a mysterious attack from Earth on Genesis, which is Naomi's homeworld. And so she has to try and go save her planet, but things really quickly start to go wrong, and she ends up in the hands of one of the last people she wants to be around. If you read the first book, you'll probably know who that is. And so her life ends up being in the enemy's hands, and things only get worse when she's caught up in another unexpected attack. And she and the rest of the passengers who are on this spacecraft that was attacked end up stranded on this remote planet that almost no one has heard of, in a part of the galaxy that's pretty much completely unexplored. And while all of that is happening, Abel is also trying to save Naomi because he knows that she's been captured. But he's also trying to fulfill a promise to her to help the people on Genesis who are suffering in the aftermath of this attack. So he's trying to do both at once, but he is prioritizing trying to find Naomi because he loves her at this point. He's realized he's capable of love, and he really wants to find her. I thought it was really well paced. It was really gripping. The plot had really well written twists and obstacles for the characters to face, which I really enjoyed because it made it like you would get so hyped up being like, yes, they're gonna get out, things are gonna get better, and then it's like actually complication. So I thought that was done really well. And ultimately it ends with a very dramatic cliffhanger. Even more dramatic than the first one ended. And so I immediately needed more. I grabbed the next book, which I will be reviewing after this, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I was left looking forward to reading the next one, which is the last one. It's a trilogy. And even though I was looking forward to it so much, at the same time I was really dreading it because it's such a good series, I just didn't want it to be over. But Defy the Worlds continues exploring some of the moral and psychological and existential questions that were posed in the first book, and also expands on them. Especially the one about how the life of a human compares to the life of a machine, and basically what defines a life and how do you put value on different kinds of life, which is a very interesting question, especially with the rise of so much AI happening right now as like a conversation topic. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but in all of my classes, they always, like, I just started a new quarter, and they all have said, no AI, don't use it for papers or anything, which I wouldn't do anyway, but it's just like, yeah, this kind of technology is coming, and even though this is a sci-fi series that's set hundreds of years into the future, some of the technology is already here, which is definitely fascinating. And I know that none of the artificial intelligence that we have currently, at least to my knowledge, and I think to public knowledge, is as advanced as Abel is in this series. But it's definitely really interesting to think about. I also thought that the dynamic between Abel and Naomi, it continued to evolve and it developed very naturally. I mentioned that already, but it has good pacing, and it also has very natural progression, especially in my opinion with Naomi, because she has been conflicted about her feelings towards Abel. She's been conflicted about her feelings towards the kind of being that he is, and how that affects her feelings. And I thought that that was explored really well and was very well written. And so ultimately, I completely recommend this book. It's such a good series. I love it so much. If you enjoy fantasy sci-fi or sci-fi, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you enjoy romance, there's a bit of that in there too. And yeah, and again, I think I mentioned this in the first one, but the covers are so cool because they're kind of simplistic at a glance, but then the more you look at them, the more detail there is, like all these different planets, and then just the two characters. And I love this series so much. I don't think I could ever say enough positive recommendations about this series. I have talked to people in my classes, and the last quarter I was reading the last one in the series during class. When I would wait for a class to start, I would have a little bit of time between a few classes, and I'd just go sit in the classroom and read. And I had a couple of friends who would come in and we'd chat before, and I would always be like, look at this book! Read the back cover! It's so good! And several of them are actually really excited to check it out. So I highly recommend it. I hope you all are interested in checking it out. If you have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's also a nice book, and I think I might have mentioned this in the other video. If you're not into really hardcore science fiction that's really heavy on the science, but you're more into the kind of world building and space travel kind of aspect, this series is really good for that, because I know there's a lot of science fiction that is very scientific, and I know that can be intimidating for some people, but this one is so much world building, and that's why I'm calling it fantasy sci-fi. It isn't really fantasy, but it's that kind of world building based science fiction rather than purely scientific based, but it still seems plausible within our known laws of reality, so it isn't super out there in terms of being incorrect scientifically. But I really liked it. I hope that you will enjoy it if you check it out. I highly recommend checking it out. And a fun fact about the author, actually related to sci-fi, is that she actually writes for some of the Star Wars novels. So if you are into more sci-fi without quite as much, I mean, I guess that has a lot of world building and stuff too, but it's a little bit less of the sort of fantasy vibe and more pure sci-fi in Star Wars than in this. This one has touches of fantasy here and there. But I highly recommend it. I absolutely love it. And please let me know your thoughts on the series, or this book, or just the video in general. Thank you again for your understanding about me being really inconsistent with talking about what I'm going to do for scheduling. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how fast I can realistically get these videos out, because it does take me a little while to read the books, especially ones like this, which are thicker than some other books. Although this actually didn't take me too long. Ones that are thick with small print take me a little bit longer. But thank you all so much. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye!